Okay, I'm Sam Eastwood. I believe I got my device coming on a year ago.
Right on. Cool. And what kind of symptoms led you to getting a sleep test or led you into looking into treating your sleep?
First, the first symptoms that made me take action, I think, were I had an appointment with a dentist who advised the way my tongue was moving that I could be a candidate for sleep apnea. And so then I went and got some testing done, and that basically confirmed that I wasn't getting the correct amount of oxygen when I was sleeping. And so I looked into some solutions for that, and I got referred to Sleep Better Austin.
Okay, right on. That's interesting that it actually started with your dentist. How did you feel about that when it was your dentist that told you this?
Yeah, so having a dentist advise me about it kind of changed the way I looked at the treatment, because it was a more scientific approach rather than trying to guess what normal looks like. Um, I've had sleeping difficulties for a few years, and the dentist was able to inform me that it was traced back to some orthodontic work I'd got done when I was in high school. And so it was interesting kind of finding out the root causes, and then that made me more open to looking at a medical solution rather than just trying to, keep powering through until things get too bad to deal with.
That's interesting. That makes sense that because your dentist was able to trace it back to something that you knew was an actual medical device, you got some orthodontics done, that you also knew that you needed a medical solution. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So because I had several teeth removed, and then the shifting that took place with the braces to cover that gap, it actually affected my tongue position when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Whereas, like most people, I probably thought of sleep apnea as something that only affected overweight people and when you're much older in life and later in life. So it wasn't something that I believed could be treated in this manner. And so getting that information from an actual medical provider kind of changed the way I looked at the treatment options.
I really appreciate you sharing that because that's definitely going to resonate with a lot of people. There's a lot of people in that same boat that feel like sleep apnea is for older weight and older people and don't realize that it has a lot to do with the shape and size of your mouth and your tongue. And sometimes those are a mismatch. So thank you so much for putting it that way. I think that was like really clear and it's going to come across great and going to resonate with people. So thanks.
Cool.
What did you try any other therapies before you got an oral device?
No, I hadn't, but what I had been doing was monitoring my sleep behavior. So I wear a Fitbit at night, and I've tried several different devices to try and improve my sleep just through habits. And so I've been tracking for coming on 2 years now how I'm sleeping at night and like the different changes environment can have. And so this was something I was interested in, and I was aware that I wasn't getting as much sleep as I should. So when I found out that there was a solution like an oral device, it was appealing to me because if you do your own research without having that kind of medical guide, you can go down some pretty wild paths, and most of them suggest surgery. And surgery in this country is a very different prospect to surgery where I'm from.
Right on. How so is that different? And was that the main turnoff for you?
Yeah, it was, because no offense, Ben, but you never know
I'm
what
not
you're
gonna.
paying for in the US, but you know they're gouging you. And at every step of the way, you don't feel confident that you are getting the correct answer for your treatment. You're getting the correct insurance answer, or you're getting the correct commercial answer. And so navigating that is really tricky. And so being able to find a non-invasive solution is something that really cuts through to people over here, I've noticed.
You know what? That is a very interesting perspective because I that certainly know about the differences in the medical systems between different countries, but I never really considered the fact that it could get in the way of you trusting the answers that you're getting, like you said right there, because you might get the right answer, like you said, by insurance and what they want to hear, or what the medical professional wants to tell you because they have a certain stake in that financially, but that might not be the right answer for you.
That's right. And that's common here. And what kind of shocked me when I moved here is that people expected you to do that calculation automatically. Whereas where I'm from, you just trust the medical system is telling you the correct thing to do. And so you just follow that advice. Whereas it's a different game here. You need to take a much more active and skeptical approach to the care that you're gonna agree to. Mm-hmm. And so bringing that to Sleep Better Austin, it wasn't something that I was just going to blindly stumble into. It's something that I had to really, really take a look at the pros and cons, and because it was a non-invasive thing, and because I've been tracking my sleep data, for a better word, I've been able to see basically within a month I had enough information that this was working, and it was something that's worth pursuing.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So tell me a little bit more about that data that you had. And that's awesome that it was only a month before you got that, but what kind of numbers were you seeing that were improving?
Yeah, so the most obvious one was the number of times I was waking up during the night went down significantly. And the quality of the sleep, I was able to reach a deeper state of sleep, which is where your body repairs itself and your muscles repair itself. And I was able to stay in that state for longer. And previous to that, the only way I was able to achieve that level of sleep was by using things like sleeping tablets or whatever that can potentially have different side effects. Whereas using this device, I was able to achieve that without having the hangover the next morning from using, any other sort of depressant.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. That the data that you're talking about and the way that you got down to deeper sleeps, you could see all that on your Fitbit? Is that how you were tracking it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Could you say that, just because I think that might resonate with people, and I realize that I just said it all. So if you could say, like, I was tracking that data or my deep sleeps on my Fitbit, that would help when we edit this thing later.
Yep. So I've been using a Fitbit device to track my sleep for about 2 years. And I've always found that I was struggling. I was waking up during the night, and that was preventing me from reaching a deep sleep state, as well as reducing the amount of time I had with rapid eye movement or REM sleep. And within, I'd say, several weeks of using the device, particularly after I got used to it, I was able to notice a change in the data results where I was achieving that deep level of sleep, as well as a longer amount of time spent in rapid eye movement.
You're natural at this, man. That was fantastic. And you've definitely done your research ahead of time before you got a treatment, for sure. And it's awesome that we saw that data improvement, because that's huge. What about subjectively? How did you feel after getting into the oral device therapy?
I was very skeptical when I began the process. I was keen to give the device a good go, but I didn't want to do anything that would cause negative outcomes in the long term. And so I wasn't keen on signing up for something that would require me every month or so making changes either to how I'm using the device, or I was keen to develop a solution where I could develop consistent habits that would lead to better sleeping outcomes. And so that was the biggest questions I had when I started, was how often I would need to see the specialist to make adjustments, or whether this was basically if we could find a solution that you can then go and you can basically take charge of your own care from there using the device.
Yeah, right on. Do you feel like the oral device has kind of fit that category for you?
I think it does. I think it's the initial outlay. I mean, you need to make an investment to get it made, of course, but that's a far better option than looking for a more drastic intervention such as surgery. And the changes, for me at least, were notable enough that if I was to have to stop using the device right now, I would be reducing the quality of sleep, but as well as the amount of time that it takes me to fall asleep. And so it is an intervention, but it's simple to put in. After the first week, it's not quite noticeable. And I think the advantages of it is that you don't have to change your sleeping habits. The only difference is you're putting in a mouth guard before you go to sleep and taking it out in the morning.
Yeah, and that's it. Right on. Well, very cool. I'm glad that it's been that way for you. How about your feeling during the day, the next day, like when you wake up or, in the afternoons? Have you noticed the difference there?
Not really.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's why the data was really important. What I will say is, on the rare occasions that I don't wear it, I'm much more aware of waking up during the night, because it's no longer becomes something that's common. And so, although because I've been using the device for so long, it's hard for me to recall my behavior before it. I now see a change in my behavior where if I'm not getting the quality of sleep, and also the fact that I can stay asleep for 8 hours now is a huge improvement. That's something that I didn't think my body could do, whereas it just needed a slight adjustment, and it didn't need a massive intervention, or it didn't need me changing my habits to something that's not sustainable. It was just I found that just through using the device, that I was able to create a situation where I have repeat behaviors and that lead to a better outcome.
That's awesome. I appreciate your ability to articulate that so much. Not everybody sees a change in their way they feel. For a lot of people, it is data driven, so I get that. I actually wear one too, and just real quick, a big reason for me was the data too, because the data shows that as you're waking up at night, like you're talking about, not getting to those deeper levels of sleep, you put yourself at risk for dementia and other things down the road. They have nothing to do with how you feel. It's just your data. So I get that, and I appreciate it. And like I said, I appreciate your ability to articulate that. What about side effects? Have you seen any side effects from wearing the device, and can you describe them if you have?
Side effects, I would say the first week of use, it's a little uncomfortable. It feels like there's pressure on your teeth, but I've had orthodontic treatments before, and I wouldn't say it's any more dramatic than that. The only other side effects is sometimes it feels like your mouth is getting dry. So when you wake up, you really need to get a drink of water. But if you're snoring, you're gonna have the same outcome anyway. So yeah, I don't think that there's a list of side effects that are notable, that are things that I didn't expect by using something like this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Glad it worked so well for you without any kind of side effects. That's fantastic. One last question, and I will let you go. This has been fantastic, and I really appreciate it. If you had a friend that was thinking about getting an oral device, but was hesitant, sitting on the fence, what would you tell him?
Well, I'd tell them to find out how you were sleeping yourself. Take some actions and figure out if you have a need for this. And once you actually do the work beforehand, I would look at all the solutions available to you. And if you have the option of using an oral appliance, I would recommend looking into that, because it's a less invasive investment, and potentially it can make some small changes, but those small changes can deliver real results. And that's something that you can actually measure. And so it's not so much that you have to put your faith into something that it may or may not work. You can actually tell if it's worked or if it hasn't. And if it doesn't work, well, then you can just stop using it, and it doesn't change the way that you have to live your life.
Again, your ability to articulate stuff is fantastic, and I appreciate it, man. This has been really, really good, and this is what I do, so I really get excited about when people have these kind of outcomes. You made my day, man. I'm going to, do you have anything else that you want to say? It sounds like you really got it out, but is there anything else you'd want to say before I call it quits?
Not really. I would just say, don't take this at face value. And if you take responsibility of your care and actually measure your own outcomes, then you're going to find what works for you.
Yeah. I think that's such a new thing for a lot of people, is like having to measure your sleep. I mean, and think about it in such an engaged ways. It's just not something that's been around for a long time. So the fact that you've said that, I think that's going to definitely resonate with people. Thank you, man.
And it's totally different than having to purchase something from your company to verify its own thing. Like, you can take reasonable steps where you can figure it out yourself. So that's far more comforting, is that when you can measure it yourself, you don't have to rely on an appointment to tell you if something's working or not.